Pay no attention to the men behind the barred curtain, nor the craters beneath the draped flags. Those hoods are there for your protection, and the meteors these days are the size of corpses. There is a war going on for your mind. We are the insurgents.
And we are back. Cindy Sheehan, scheduled to be in studio, just arriving in the next few minutes. I want to do a bit of a news blitz before we have her in studio. One click away from a cop. Yes, in Germany, it's now going to be so easy to tattletale on your neighbors, you won't even have to call the police if you think they're doing something that's illegal. And remember, they have the little police tattletale squads where you're part of this network of police officers, citizen officers that can report on environmental crimes. Well, now you're one click away. The Autobahn has SOS phones for motorists in need. Now police want to launch a similar service for the German internet. Soon, those who stumble across dubious web content may be just a click away from the authorities. So this also intertwines with the Cybersecurity Act and such. Yeah, let's just bring her in. If she's ready to go, that sounds great. So I guess we're going to have her in just 5 minutes early, folks, so you get a little bit of a treat. Cindy Sheehan, I mean, what can you say about her? For the past 5 years, she really has been the voice of the anti-war movement. She's done probably more than anybody to bring awareness to the illegal occupation in Iraq, and she puts her money where her mouth is. You know, she's ran for Congress, challenged Pelosi on her seat, really got beyond the left-right paradigm, and said, you know what, if she's not going to impeach Bush for war crimes, if she's not going to promote, you know, us getting out of the Middle East, well, I'm going to do something about it. I'm going to run for that congressional seat. How are you tonight, Cindy?
I'm pretty exhausted.
Pretty exhausted?
Yeah.
I'm okay. Yeah, you've been doing a lot. Why don't you tell people why you're in Austin?
I wrote a book in February called Myth America, 10 Greatest Myths of the Robber Class in a Case for Revolution. And I put it out to my list that I wanted to go on book tour. And so a lot of my supporters said, sure. And so I organized a Texas tour. I was in Dallas. You may have heard we protested in front of George Bush's house. And then Waco last night. And then I have several events here in Austin till Saturday.
So what are the main 10 points that you're going through in this new book?
We were on TV.
Yeah. We're sort of on TV. We're you don't look bad. We're on internet TV, and yes, it will be big on the web.
Really tired.
Yes. So what are these 10 points? The robber class, by the way. It does look like you are getting beyond left and right, Democrat and Republican.
Those labels don't make any sense at all. You know, I try to define, well, people on the left, people on the right, but they don't make sense. You know, is the people on the little bit left of right center, you know, like Obama or Democrats, people like that. So those labels don't make sense to me anymore. If Obama's on the left, then where am I? You know, I'm not even on the scale.
Yeah, exactly.
You know?
Exactly. So what pushed you into running for Congress? Now, you made a pretty good run. You got a little less than 20% of the vote. I was hoping you were going to win.
Yeah,
you know,
I really tried.
Obviously. And you ran in a tough district. I mean, you went to California and you moved to San Francisco so that you could challenge Pelosi. And to me, you know, I've never been a fan of Pelosi. I've been able to see through her game. She was one of the initial investigators into the initial congressional report on 9/11, which we have 27 pages redacted. As soon as the Democrats got in 2006, and I mean, you had a push on that. We were hoping that the war was going to end, that they were going to force the illegal occupation out. Didn't happen.
No.
She immediately got out there and said, well, we're not even going to charge them with war crimes, and we're just going to toe the party line.
Off the table.
Off the table. And, you know, then people said, well, once we get Obama into office, well, we're going to get out of Iraq and Afghanistan. And their open plans say that we're going to have 50,000 troops there, non-combat, of course, until 2011 December. Then we're going to make decisions.
Well, I think John McCain was right when he said that our troops would be there 50 or 100 years. They're still in Korea. They're still in Japan. They're still in Germany. You know, so of course we're going to leave a residual force there. That's what our military does. And, you know, I live in California. I'm a born and raised Californian, so moving to San Francisco wasn't that big of a deal to me, but it was a very, very tough district. You know, I wrote a book called Myth America, 10 Greatest Myths of the Robber Class. One that I didn't include because it's not one of the greatest myths is that San Francisco is liberal. You know, San Francisco is democratic, and there's nothing liberal about, like you said, mainstream Democrats or the Democratic Party leadership. They're not liberal. They're not progressive at all. You know. So, and then Nancy Pelosi, of course, is not a progressive. She's as establishment as it gets. Absolutely. I call her the queen of the robber class. And so that's right. And so I went to San Francisco, somebody who's well known in that community, somebody who has sacrificed a lot, who did have a very progressive, humanist-based platform. And, like you said, I got a little less than 20% of the vote. I got about 50,000 votes, but we were really running to win. We ran really hard.
Well, why don't you tell people what that's like? Because, we got a lot of listeners here that say, oh, what can I do? What can I do? Everybody feels so helpless. Now, you not only got out and did something, I mean, you were really the voice of the anti-war movement when it was hip, when it was anti-Bush. Then the media kind of drew away from you once the Democrats got into office, and you didn't get as much coverage, even though you were striving for the same thing. That's probably when you made the decision, well, I better run for office and take this into my own hands. How does that process go? I mean, what do you do initially to say, I'm going to run for Congress, and then actually make it happen?
I left the Democratic Party in May of 2007. I was barely a Democrat anyway, and so I made a formal decision to leave and a formal announcement. But that's what I thought, is what else can I do? Because I did leave the movement when I got attacked for leaving the Democratic Party by the so-called people on the left. And so I just said, well, what am I doing? Why am I killing myself? Literally, I was sick, I was broke, I was tired. And but I would keep doing it as long as I felt like it was supported. The right has always criticized me, but then all of a sudden the left was criticizing me. But then when Nancy Pelosi, I think her last straw for me was when George Bush commuted Scooter Libby's sentence, and then Nancy Pelosi didn't do anything about it. So I just said, well, so I will challenge her. And I thought by challenging her, I ran really hard. I ran to win. I never really thought I had a chance to beat her. But if things were fair and equal, I would have.
Well, if you would have gotten half the press coverage that they gave her.
Right.
A lot of people didn't even know that you were running.
Right.
Especially on a national level.
Exactly.
I would say, well, Cindy Sheehan is running against Nancy Pelosi for her seat in the House. And people were like, really? I'm like, people are like, well, why aren't they covering it? And I said, well, it's really the double thing. You had these Democrats that were backing you all these years that the Bush administration was in. But then as soon as you start criticizing their party, all of a sudden the stories change. It's just like when they say, no, we're going to stay in Afghanistan and Iraq. Actually, we're going to redistribute forces from Iraq into Afghanistan. I believe they just sent another 7,000 to 14,000 troops just last week into Afghanistan. But now you're not allowed to criticize the war. Why don't you speak to that?
Not allowed anymore.
Isn't that craziness?
Yeah. Well, a lot of people are coming around, I think, already. They're disgusted with Obama. They're very disappointed because they put so much false hope in him, and so that's why they're so deeply disappointed. I never was, because I knew what he was exactly going to do, and so I just want to say that there really isn't an anti-war movement that has integrity. It's an anti-Republican war movement. And once they're Democrats in power or Democrats start them, you hear very little from the Democrat supporters.
Yeah, no, I don't see anything.
Nothing from Move On. Nothing from people who supported me when I was criticizing George Bush and Dick Cheney. That most of the major organizations have been co-opted by the Democratic Party. So, at least when I was just challenging half of the system, I got support from the other half. But when I run for Congress against a Democrat, running against the entire system, then the support, the media just evaporates. The media is part of the robber class system, right? They just exist to reinforce each other, keep each other in power, and keep each other's profits. And
do you focus on that in the book, just kind of showing how the media is yet another arm of this government leviathan? It's really not even it's the military-industrial complex that Eisenhower talked about. It's the integration of corporations and their will, governments and their will, and the media and their will. And they all work together for what seems to be this globalist agenda. I mean, I look at what's happening in the Middle East, and like you said, 50, 100 years, it seems to me they want a Eurasian Union. They literally want to dominate not only over Afghanistan and Iraq, but Saudi Arabia, Pakistan.
Well, look what they're doing in Pakistan. It seems like what they're doing is they're trying to deliberately destabilize that government even more than it is already. So what happens when we go into these places and install puppet governments or cooperate with puppet governments that were already there? then we start killing innocent people in there, and then the people in the country are going, hey, wait a minute, you're friends with the United States and they're killing our people, and that causes more violence and more hatred and more destabilization. So, yeah, of course, what they're doing is destabilizing the entire region. Mm-hmm. So it's easier to control their resources. It's easier to control, the world, actually.
Yeah, and this, to me, is about world dominance. Like I said, globalization.
Right.
I mean, here at home, they continue to pass draconian legislation. The Patriot Acts didn't go away.
Right.
The Department of Homeland Security only expanded. Now it's being swallowed up by the NSA.
Right.
We're seeing more of these domestic extremism lexicons, where if you're anti-war, oh, you're an extremist and you might be a terrorist. You could be working with Al-Qaeda. I had to hear Glenn Beck today say that 9/11 truthers were praising this shooting at the Holocaust Museum today. Yeah, it's on the front page of the INFOWARRIOR.com right now. He also says that we want to destroy the country and that we're willing to work with Al-Qaeda to do so.